the technology that we build, our mission is to hyperconnect the U.S. manufacturing industry. And so we're focused on this concept of reshoring, or bringing manufacturing back into the U.S. and building software that allows manufacturers to connect with one another and get work done together, so that it's not being sent to another country, but that it's being done here in the U.S. And so that's our mission, and it's the reason why we build the products that we do and what we sell.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with Spencer Traver, Director of Marketing at Sustainment. Spencer, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Oh, my pleasure. I appreciate you spending some time with us on Business Ninjas. Please tell us a bit about yourself and about Sustainment.
Yeah, so I've been in marketing generally over the last near decade of my career. Spent 7 years in ad tech at a firm, started out operationally working with agencies and brands in the digital advertising space. And so represented our company as just a main CS point of contact, and then ran a team within our CS department for a couple of years before our head of marketing had reached out and asked me to build out a content marketing program for our business. And so that trajectory was a lot of fun to learn with those people. When I joined, it was basically a 150 employee company or so, and we were still venture backed at the time. We brought on our first of 2 private equity partners in 2017, and grew to a $1.5 billion valuation by the time the second private equity partner came on in 2021. And so, that was an awesome ride. And I learned a lot as I pivoted, from that operation management style to the, marketing side of the business, just what it looks like to build a content engine, what it looks like to corporately market a business, how that plays into business strategy. And as the company continued to grow, we grew in size through a couple of acquisitions and whatnot to, 600, 700 employees. And so I found myself itching to go and get into the startup world again, and to go earlier than I had ever gone. I'm pretty connected in the Fort Worth entrepreneurship community here, and volunteer with a few groups here. And a lot of my startup entrepreneur friends really had me craving, just going back to that and going to something new. And so that was the challenge that I sought out with Sustainment. And really, once I landed on Sustainment, it was kind of funny because it's exactly what I wanted in terms of a tech company that's making a real impact in the world, run by great people with a very clear vision. And it was a true startup too. It was a 20 to 25 employee company. I report directly into our CEO, Brett Boyd, who founded the company. And so it really is a startup. But, the irony that's not lost on me is that I went from ad tech to manufacturing tech, which those audiences couldn't be more different from one another. And so it's, taught me a lot so far over the last year that I've been here, and a little under a year. But anyways, it's been a fun ride so far.
Well, you obviously like to be challenged. If you want to go from a 1.5 billion valuation company to a startup in an industry that you're not familiar with, you certainly want to challenge yourself. So how long has this Sustainment been? I'm going to do that again. How long has Sustainment been around? What's the origin story there?
Yeah, Sustainment was founded right before the pandemic in 2020, so 2019. Sustainment's backing, kind of the background of how it got started, was actually with the U.S. Air Force, and that's where the term sustainment comes out of. And so we do a lot of work with federal and government defense programs. We work with the U.S. Air Force and the DLA as part of our contracts with the government. That's actually where it began. And really the phase that we're in now, we have this, growing defense federal business that works with, random sectors within that federal defense department. And so we have that, but we have also a commercial unit, and that commercial unit services 300,000 small to mid-size and large, enterprise size as well, manufacturers across the U.S. And so that's what we're focused on building, is how do we take what we built initially for the DoD and take that product and commercialize that for 300,000 U.S. manufacturers. And really, it boils down to our vision The technology that we build, our mission is to hyperconnect the U.S. manufacturing industry. And so we're focused on this concept of reshoring or bringing manufacturing back into the U.S. and building software that allows manufacturers to connect with one another and get work done together so that it's not being sent to another country, but that it's being done here in the U.S. And so that's our mission. And it's the reason why we build the products that we do and what we sell.
There are so many reasons why that's a good idea. I mean, we all suffered through the supply chain crisis, and if things are domestic, it has to change that equation exponentially. So get in a little more specifics about what sort of services and platform you provide.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point too. Like we've seen a lot of different, I'd say crisis moments, over the past couple of years, especially if you really start with the COVID pandemic, which disrupted supply chains for what feels like will be a really, really long time. And it's changed, the way that people view supply chains probably forever. And, I would say you look at events like what happened in Baltimore, where the bridge came down from a cargo ship. And you look at other events, just like the canal being shut down, where you're not able to get shipments in and out, imports and exports. You look at things that are happening currently right now, the port strike that's been going on the East Coast. We talked about that a little bit earlier, is that you don't know what to expect. And I think that's what happens, is that when you experience supply chain fragility, and when things happen in industry, especially here in America, it hits home very quickly and people hit a panic button. And so for us, it's paramount that we have products and services that can stand the test of time, that are adapting to the changing needs of today's businesses, not just here in the US, but globally. And so as we focus on US manufacturing, we want to make sure that we're building technology that meets that. And so what we do is we sell Sustainment SRM. It's a category called Supplier Relationship Management. And so our product or our service primarily deals with the way that a manufacturer manages its supply base. And so we want to give them the tools needed to go and find new suppliers when they need to do that, to manage the various quotes, the quoting activity that they're doing on that strategic sourcing effort, the purchase orders that they're solving for, and then getting on the back end the robust analytics and insights about their suppliers that they work with so that they can make more informed decisions and then also prevent these crisis moments that we just talked about.
And you're leveraging experience in probably the most difficult arena in that context. The DoD, you're talking RFPs, you're talking a sales cycle that is multi-years long, and there's so many layers of red tape to get a contract across the plate that if you guys have functioned well in that scenario, I would think your expertise is sort of obvious in the normal way to do business in this country.
We've had just a great leadership vision within the team here. Brett has done an excellent job just getting this company up and running. And then there's really not a hat he hasn't worn in the company either. And so the way that he does that, and then we have different leaders within the company. One I'll brag on especially, Chris Hill. He oversees our federal defense program, and he actually was a one-star general in the U.S. Air Force. And so he's got that background of understanding what it's like. And actually, I want to say a fifth of our company, at least a fifth, are former U.S. veterans from various military departments. And so we've got West Point grads, we've got, U.S. Air Force, alum. And so we've got people that understand what it's like to really see how this is run and then figure out, how do we commercialize that? How do we, impact lives through business in the way that we connect with one another, specifically in the manufacturing sector?
What are the most common problems you're solving for clients?
That's a great question. So one of the biggest ones is that people have a hard time finding suppliers that are qualified to make specific parts. So we would call that strategic sourcing. A lot of it is that, the way that manufacturing has operated for a really long time is that it's been done, almost like prehistoric technology wise, right? It's been very slow to adapt to changing technology. And so where other industries are very used to maybe plugging into, AI type tools and bots and using LLMs to go and solve modern problems, manufacturing, a lot of it has been done through making phone calls and a lot of word of mouth, and not even using, Google or LinkedIn to figure out, who is it that can help me with this. And it's really not built. Those environments aren't really built for these manufacturers to be optimized to find one another. And so that's a big problem that we're solving for. Another is that, and this is kind of our value prop right now, because there's a lot of companies that focus on that sourcing effort, but very few companies focus on how you manage the supplier relationship holistically. And so what we look at is the way that software has been designed, specifically not just for manufacturing, but just how it's been designed for businesses. It's very common that you would see that sales and marketing would get a CRM, your accounting and finance teams would get an ERP, and you can look at other departments like specific to manufacturing, quality would get a QMS, for example. But really when you talk to the procurement teams or the procurement and sourcing function of the business, they don't have a software that's purpose built for them. Most often they use spreadsheets. So they're using Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets to get work done. And so there's better ways to do business. And that's what Sustainment is focused on, is that we want to make sure that we're providing software and resources to be able to be purpose built for those procurement and sourcing functions of the business.
Well, that makes so much sense. I picture a guy with a Rolodex making calls from company to company to source materials. And it's amazing that not that industry, that's every industry, hasn't gone into the 21st century and that you're helping them get there. What differentiates Sustainment in the market? What makes you guys stand out from your competition?
Yeah, so I'd say like our approach, specifically about how SRM works. SRM is a broad product category. It's an existing category of software. It's an existing category of technology, but SRM has not been verticalized within the manufacturing sector. And so that's what Sustainment is doing, is we're taking something that's a broad concept that typically gets viewed as an enterprise level solution. So we often get asked if we're like SAP Ariba, for example. And so you're trying to figure out how to differentiate and really carve out a sector of the market that is blue ocean, and very much, creating a space within the market of seeing an obvious need, from a tactical standpoint of there needs to be software that does this, and then selling that software. And so for us, what we're doing that's unique is that we're actually not selling solutions so much as we're selling a problem mindset. And we're going in with the idea of, hey, if you can see this problem, the way that we describe it, which is that there has not been a software built specifically for procurement that holistically helps you manage supplier relationships. And so you either end up, if you're the technically savvy manufacturer, you end up in disparate systems, none of which you typically would admit you love, or you end up in dated systems, and you end up in, not that spreadsheets are dated, but becomes a very manual way of handling business. And actually, you mentioned Rolodex. We did a piece of content, and since this is a content marketing podcast, I'll plug this. We did a piece of content, a thought leadership piece, and the idea, it's called the SRM Maturity Model Matrix. And really what it is it's this curve, and there's 4 stages to the curve. And on one axis, if you had a 2-axis graph, is on one axis, you basically have the growth of the company, like the stage of growth that they're in. And on the other axis, you have technological adoption. And the idea is that as companies grow, you adopt, newer or at least more technology typically. And so that Rolodex is that phase 1 of, we would go and talk to manufacturers and say, it's a phase 1 maturity model company of they're doing things at a Rolodex. But really what we did with that content piece is that we didn't just define the sections for people, which I think people would all agree generally with those phases of business. But we defined, these are the common problems that, these are the statements that are being said in this phase of business. I wish we could do X. I wish we could do Y. We do too much of X. We do too much of Y. And so we identified those. And then the next step, like this is the next like general best step for these types of companies. And so really where we find Sustainment being most helpful for, we serve, I told you we do a federal and defense program, but on the commercial side, we serve all the way from small to mid-size to enterprise. But really our sweet spot is right in that mid-size of those companies that get to stage 2 and they're using those spreadsheets. They're using maybe a layer of AI within that, and they're wanting more. And what the industry has told them more is an ERP. And an ERP is really a finance admin tool or software that's not built for procurement sourcing, that has a procurement sourcing feature layered into it that procurement and sourcing teams don't love. And so we're basically trying to catch companies on the way up and help them grow through that, and then integrate into their workflows from there. So that's really where we see our spot in the market.
I love it. It's a challenging time, right? Most companies seem to be growing through M&A, and now all of a sudden you've got siloed data in 22 different systems around the planet, and somebody has to level the playing field. And if procurement's not happy, the whole thing does. Hey, we had a supply chain crisis for a reason, right? I don't think it's over. It's better than it was, but it's not over. Hey, we're in October of 2024, and we're all pretty aware of global warming. I see a global benefit to what you guys do. If you can improve the communication and lines of business domestically, and I buy a product that didn't have to be shipped from the other side of the planet, there's a lot of really broad scale progress to be made there. So you guys are.
Yeah, and it's really interesting too, like being in an election cycle, manufacturing has been a hot topic in these debates and in these forums. And maybe I'm just more acutely aware of it now, having worked in manufacturing tech and not having done that in any other election cycle, but it does feel like there's a heavy emphasis there of, bringing jobs back into the US and how kind of, maybe indirectly what we're doing actually impacts our ability to have those jobs and to create new jobs. So we see an opportunity there of, manufacturing is 10% of our nation's GDP. It's a huge part of our economy. It's a huge part of what makes the world go round. And you often aren't grateful for the supply chain and for manufacturing as a whole until it gets disrupted. And you go to the grocery store and you're like, why can't I buy bananas this week? Or, you go and onto Amazon, you're like, why is this out of stock for 30 days? Right? You don't appreciate it until there's disruption. And so it makes the world go round. And our job is to help mitigate more of that, and to do that by whether that's, taking a company and deepening their roots within the U.S. if they're solely based on U.S. manufacturing, or companies that have international supply chains, which is totally fine, but then giving them a more robust domestic side where they can mitigate risk as they see fit by sending more of their work through domestic.
You said that that manufacturing is 10% of our GDP. I would have thought the number would have been substantially higher than that.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of components, right, that go into it, but it's a massive part of the nation's GDP. And, I feel fortunate just to work in an industry that it feels like there's a lot of us and a lot of different ways you can slice manufacturing and manufacturing tech. There sure are, but it's neat to be in an industry where there's a lot of real world impact happening.
All right, I'm going to throw you a lob. So you told me you spent a fair bit of time in the world of content marketing. What role has content played in the growth of Sustainment?
So content so far in my first year here, really it's about telling our story. It's a branding play today. We're very focused on letting people know that first of all, we exist and here's why we exist. Here's our mission. We're a public benefit corp. Working towards deepening that relationship and that tie. And so we're focused on how do we missionally align our business objectives in the way that we tactically approach day-to-day business with our overarching mission, which is to hyperconnect U.S. manufacturers to one another. And so we're venture backed out of Austin, Texas. We raised a successful Series A round in 2022. We're continuing to grow, and so hope to continue to raise additional capital and continue to grow in that way. And so, for us, I would say content today is very much about the brand story and letting people know we exist and why we exist, and more productized. It's about, telling people that there's a better way to do the work that they do every day and helping them see problems and have problem mindsets that allow them to then say, well, then what's the solution? And we know we're positioned in that case to be the obvious solution because there's not other companies in the space that are doing it like we are. There's companies that are focused on portions of the problem, but not the overarching supplier relationship management problem. And so, yeah, it's just a matter of getting companies to see that. So we're very focused on branding today. We'll see where that goes as we continue to grow.
Excellent. Well, look down the road a year from now. What are some things you'd like to be celebrating personally and professionally?
A road from now, I hope Sustainment, has a really robust and thriving commercial unit that is very connected, and we're seeing case study after case study of ways that we're impacting day-to-day lives and how these manufacturers are providing a part, it could be as simple as a single part that goes into the greater whole of something that, a company buys and sells. And so just understanding how like that growth can compound and what traction looks like, I think is really important for where we are as a company. I would say the other thing is, as we get down the road a year from now, is just understanding what it would look like to, see more investment into the business so that we can go and increase the output of what we're doing. And we're very bought in on a very clear, purpose-driven mission. And so I'd love to see Sustainment just continue that mission and partner with investors that allow us to compound. We've got a great investor base today, and would just love to continue to work with them and work with others who want us to continue this mission and to drive this home. And so that's what I would say. And then personally, as a marketer and as the head of our marketing operations right now, I would say I want people to be more aware of who we are. More than that, I want them to be aware of the problem we see in the marketplace and just the mission we have of reshoring and connecting U.S. manufacturers to one another. I think it's really important. And so if we can accomplish that, I think that's a win. And then obviously just increase that sales motion and, keep it going.
Excellent. Please tell us, what's your URL? Where can people find Sustainment? And what social media outlets are you using these days as well?
So this might actually be the biggest lob question of them all. And I actually was on a call yesterday about how they got this URL, but it is sustainment.com. So super simple to remember. Yeah, no, that was a valuable point for us, and we were able to secure that, which is great. So sustainment.com, and then social media, LinkedIn. So if you go to LinkedIn and just type in Sustainment, you'll find us.
Excellent. Spencer Traver of Sustainment, thank you for spending some time with us today on Business Ninjas. Continued success to you and yours, and all the best to Sustainment.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andrew. I appreciate the time. It's a great combo.
My pleasure. Be well.